Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to make sense of these massive company filings. And today we are looking at Astria Therapeutics, and let me tell you, they've made some pretty interesting moves this past quarter. So what's the big news? Astria Therapeutics, the company focused on developing new medicines, has inked a deal with a Japanese company called Accession Pharmaceutical. This is a pretty significant partnership for Astria, and it all revolves around a drug candidate called navenibart. Now, what is navenibart, you ask? Well, it's a special kind of drug, a long-acting antibody that targets something called plasma kallikrein. Think of it as a very targeted way to stop a specific biological process. The goal here is to prevent attacks related to something called hereditary angioedema, or HAE. HAE is a rare genetic disorder that causes sudden swelling attacks in different parts of the body. So what does this deal actually mean for Astria? First off, they get an upfront payment of $16 million. That's a nice chunk of change right there, but it doesn't stop there. They could potentially get another $16 million in what they call commercialization and sales milestones. These are payments that would happen if the drug navenibart is successful in the market. And if that wasn't enough, Astria will get royalties on sales of navenibart in Japan. We're talking about a percentage of what Accession makes from selling the drug, and this percentage can range from the mid-teens all the way up to 30%. That's a pretty good slice of the pie, especially if the drug becomes a big seller. This payment stream lasts for a long time too, until at least 10 years after the first sale, or until patents and other protections expire. Accession is also going to help out with the development. They'll support Astria's big phase 3 trial in Japan, which is basically a late stage test to see if the drug works and is safe. Accession will also handle getting the necessary approvals from the Japanese government and will pay back some of the costs Astria has already spent on developing navenibart. Accession is contractually obligated to try their best to get this drug approved and sold in Japan. The agreement also has some interesting clauses. If Astria decides to develop navenibart for something other than IE, Accession gets the first chance to negotiate for the rights to sell it for those other uses in Japan. Both companies will also work together on a joint steering committee to guide their activities. The deal can be ended if one party significantly breaches the agreement, or if one goes bankrupt. Accession also has a bit more flexibility to end the deal if there's a serious safety issue with the drug, or really for any reason, by giving enough notice. Now you might be wondering, what does this mean for Astria's overall financial health and their plans? Well, they also released some information about their money situation. Astria is expecting that with the money from this Accession deal, plus some reimbursements for their drug development costs, they'll have enough cash to keep their operations running through 2028. This is pretty good news considering how expensive it is to develop new drugs. Their plan includes finishing up their big phase 3 trial for navenibart and also working on another drug candidate called Star 0310. However, and this is a big however, Astria is also very clear that this money will not be enough to finish developing all of their drug candidates. Developing new medicines is a long and incredibly costly process. They are going to need to find a lot more money to bring any of their products, including navenibart and Star 0310, all the way to market and to keep the company running. This is a critical point many smaller biotech companies face. They get their science and early development right, but then need massive amounts of capital to get to the finish line. This is where we get into the really important stuff about their future prospects. They've got this deal with Accession, which is a positive step, but it's not a magic bullet that solves all their financial needs. The path forward, as they themselves state, requires substantial additional funding. This means more fundraising through selling more stock, or maybe taking on debt, or perhaps striking even more partnerships like this one. And they even provide a warning about their future outlook, which is standard practice in these filings. They're talking about things that might happen in the future, like drug approvals, funding, and market conditions. It's important to remember that these are just predictions and real-world outcomes can often be different. So what's the big picture here? Astria Therapeutics has secured a significant partnership in Japan with Accession Pharmaceutical for their drug navenibart. This deal brings in immediate cash and potential future royalties, which is a great step forward. It validates their science and their lead drug candidate. But, and it's a big but, this deal doesn't fully solve their long-term funding problem. Developing drugs is incredibly capital intensive, and Astria still faces the challenge of raising substantial funds to bring their pipeline of potential medicines to market. This is kind of the story of many smaller biotech firms. They have promising science and good early results, but the journey from the lab to patients is a marathon, not a sprint, and it requires deep pockets. The Accession deal helps them run that marathon a little longer, but they absolutely need to find more sponsors or investors down the road. Looking at their direction, the strength is clearly in their science and their ability to attract partners for their drug candidates. The weakness is the perpetual need for massive amounts of capital inherent in the industry. A major opportunity here is the potential success of navenibart in Japan, which could pave the way for similar deals in other territories. A key risk remains their ability to secure sufficient funding to advance STAR 0310 and any other future discoveries through the costly clinical trial phases and gain regulatory approvals. In conclusion, Astria is making progress strategically partnering to advance its pipeline. However, investors should remember that the ultimate success hinges on continued funding and successful clinical outcomes. It's a company to watch, but also one where the high-risk, high-reward nature of biotech is very much on display. Alright, that's our breakdown of Astria Therapeutics' latest filing. What's your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Do you think they can secure the funding they need? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps us out, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of corporate finance and biotech. And don't forget to check out our Discord channel linked in the description below for more discussions and to connect with fellow analysts. Thanks for watching. See you next time.